Airbnb has become the go-to option if you wish to place a property on the short-term rental market, boasting over 6 million available listings and over 1 billion reservations served. When you as a host are working with the largest player in the short-term rental game, there's a dangerous dark side to doing business. If you choose to list your property on the Airbnb platform, you must be willing to host at your own risk. Airbnb has a long history of banning users, both guests and hosts, from the Airbnb platform without notice or explanation for violation of their Airbnb terms of service. In this video, we are going to talk about one occurrence from a gentleman in the EU who is a fan of this YouTube channel who reached out via DM explaining to us that he was banned without understanding why for a violation of their terms of service. We dug deep, we got the information we needed so we can teach you what you need to know in order to prevent yourself from being at the same risk of getting banned. A large percentage of hosts on the Airbnb platform are at risk for this very same ban because they're doing the exact same thing that this host in the EU is doing. Now, for context, there are two types of bans. There are outright bans where you can no longer log in and do business and they clear your calendar and cancel all of your bookings, and there's something called a shadow ban. This can happen at the listing level where they just make it so that way your listing gets no views. I do have a previous video on this topic. Go find that video if you wish to look at the shadow ban. But in this video, we are going to talk about the ways that you can get permabanned by Airbnb for terms of service violation and how you can prevent putting yourself at risk. Sean Rakic, this is Airbnb Automated, and let's get right to it.
Thanks for staying tuned on that long intro, guys. And remember, please like this video. It helps it perform. This one's gonna be super important for Airbnb hosts around the world because this host is in the EU, I believe in Romania. One noteworthy article that I actually found when researching Airbnb's banning policies is they made a statement that any landlords that evict tenants for non-payment of rent, they won't be able to put their properties on Airbnb. So if you evict a tenant for not paying their rent during COVID, then you cannot be an Airbnb host with that property. Airbnb made the statement as a measure to prevent the misappropriation of properties, affordable housing, and not contribute to the housing crisis. Now, that is another topic for a separate video. Does Airbnb cause housing shortages? But that's not for this video. But I'd like to hear your thoughts, guys. Is Airbnb kind of stepping out of line, taking too much control over the situation? Do you think this is good? Is this a good move to protect the fine people of the world from just getting evicted because landlords are greedy and want profit? Or is Airbnb making an assumption about the nature of landlords here, and landlords should be able to do what they want with their own properties? What say you guys? Put it in the comments. The first ban, the one that we're talking about, the one that you guys are at most risk for, one that we were at risk for until just over a couple years ago, has to do with cameras and surveillance technology. A fun fact, separate, tangential from this video, but an Alexa smart home device or a Google smart home device technically is a surveillance device, because if I wanted to ask her what the weather was, I could ask her. Now she has to listen to the exact words that I say, transcribe them, and then she databases the words that I say. And since that is a surveillance device, it would have to be disclosed in your house rules. So if you do have smart devices, you have to put in your Airbnb terms of service or in your Airbnb house rules that you have surveillance equipment, because your smart home actually records what people say. Just a fun fact. Now, this is more so to do with cameras. So cameras are super popular and they work largely for what they're intended to do, which is to prevent bad stuff from happening. In my history on Airbnb, during the Super Bowl in Houston, we saw a lot of sex trafficking, which was no fun. So there's a lot of sex workers coming in and out and a lot of illicit activity. We got involved with the cops and stung someone who was bringing girls in and out of our apartment complexes and of course putting them to work. So there's been a lot of weird stuff. And we've had people die in our Airbnbs. We've had people try to squat, try to steal stuff or successfully steal everything. There's a lot of stuff that makes you want to have a camera. But there are a lot of rules about cameras, and this is what you need to know. So let me just dump it on you. You can have a camera outside your home. That's not really a big deal, right? A perimeter camera is fine. In apartment complexes, you have to get permission from the building to put a camera outside of the apartment, but in the hallways, largely, they won't give you permission because now you're spying on your neighbors, right? So there are rules about that. But sometimes they'll let you do the Ring doorbell cameras, though, because it just points and it only really turns on when somebody's interacting with your door. But a camera that actually goes on the door, if the door opens into the apartment, all of a sudden is an internal camera, and those have a different set of rules. And let's talk about those rules, because this is how the guy got banned. He has a camera facing the front door. So inside the apartment, facing the door. So the field of view is the door, nothing else, right? Sounds safe enough. But here are the rules and how they apply. First off, you cannot have a camera in a bedroom or in a bathroom, right? And that camera, whether or not it points at a door, you cannot be within line of sight of that camera through the open door of a bedroom or bathroom. So if a bathroom is open and you're standing in the doorway of the bathroom and you can see a camera anywhere, that is out of policy. Same thing with a bedroom. So those are the two most obvious reasons why you wouldn't want to put a camera in a very small apartment or a very open apartment. But now let's look at a studio apartment, easiest example. A studio apartment is a bedroom and it is a bathroom and it is nothing else, right? Even though it might be designed in a way that the camera is pointed at the front door, it is still in the same room that someone is sleeping in, right? So you cannot have the camera in the bedroom, no matter how far away from the bed it is, or if there's a kitchen in between the front door and the bedroom, the fact that it's not separated by a door and a wall is what constitutes it as a bedroom. Now, further, if you advertise any area as a sleepable area, living room, playroom, media room, etc., if you advertise a couch to be slept on, or you have an air mattress or a rollaway bed in that room, all those rules now apply. You cannot have a camera in that room either. And this means that, let's say you have a front door where you walk in and it's like this closed off mudroom, but that mudroom does not have a door in between it and the kitchen, right? And now that kitchen doesn't have a door in between it and the living room, so it's all open concept. You walk in the front door, there might be just a huge wall and you have to take a right, which is how this guy's one works. You walk into this cubby of a mudroom, you have to hang a right into the kitchen, and then you have to hang a left into the living room, something like that. That camera still is technically in the same room, because the mudroom, kitchen, and living room are all the same one room, and thus if you advertise the couch or the area to be slept in, you now have a camera in a sleeping space. Even though you can't see the camera until you go through a maze of little hallway areas to get to the camera, it still counts, and it's still a violation of Airbnb's terms of service. And this is what got the guy banned, was for having a camera technically in an area where somebody sleeps. What's wild about this is the guest ahead of time said, hey, I saw that you have an internal camera in your house, not comfortable with that. Can you remove the camera before I stay? And he did acquiesce to that and actually removed the camera before the guest arrived. But it wasn't that one reservation that then became the problem. That guest still complained to Airbnb about the internal camera ever being there at all. And so because he had past reservations where he was out of compliance with Airbnb's privacy policies and not surveilling his guests, Airbnb first suspended his account, started to cancel future reservations, and then after finalizing their review, they banned him altogether. And of course, I've got a text message inbox full of stuff today. The first thing you need to do is remove any cameras that compromise your ability to continue as an Airbnb host under this new information. If you literally have a mudroom that somebody walks in and it's like a space station kind of pod where you come in, it's enclosed, you can take off all your junk, and then you have to go through another door. If yours is that cool, then power to you. You can have a camera in the mudroom. But otherwise, you guys are all in danger. Now, there are other surveillance devices or monitoring devices that really work. There's three big players in the game. There's Party Squasher, there's Minut, and there's NoiseAware. I'm a big fan of Minut, and I found them myself. NoiseAware is probably the best marketed in the United States, but after having a conversation with them, they kind of rubbed me the wrong way in a direct email chain. And thus I went hunting for alternatives because I realized I needed a device like this, but I realized I did not like NoiseAware and the people that worked inside the company. Sad, right? But I found this company out of Europe. They had almost no footprint in the United States, and I talked to them and said, hey, I like your device, and I think hosts need to know about it. And that's why years ago I started kind of like promoting Minut myself. And they've since come a long way. There's a couple of things that I don't like they added a monthly membership. All of them have a monthly membership now, which sucks, but then they've added some cool features. So all of them monitor noise levels. You can choose a decibel of noise level that you're comfortable with, and if it gets too loud, it'll let you know, and thus you can know that people are being unruly. And of course, like, the whole goal here is to prevent parties, because if you have parties at your home and you weren't in control of stopping them, and you didn't do the right things to try to prevent them, and you didn't call Airbnb and say, hey, I guess this is actively breaking my house rules, please help. If you're not proactive with Airbnb when something goes down, they can ban you for being a public nuisance and violating their terms of service. So you're walking a very thin line here. So you need surveillance devices. And so if this noise level monitoring device tells you that it's too loud, you can then take action, which is good. Now further though, Party Squasher and Minut, I don't think NoiseAware has this feature, I don't think their hardware allows for it, but they can also monitor the number of mobile devices in the home, like connectable Bluetooth Wi-Fi devices, which is pretty cool. I don't think it's as necessary because I think noise levels alone should tell you that something's wrong, but you could say noise levels, oh, and there's only 3 devices in the home. Somebody's just watching TV really loudly, right? Something like that. And I guess the way that you would respond to the guest would be a little bit more friendly, like, hey, I hope you're enjoying your stay. It just sounds like you're listening to music really loud or the TV's on super loud, which is you're in violation of our quiet hours, so please turn it down. But if you see noise kick off and then you see that there's a ton of devices, you know that it's a party and you can be much more aggressive in the way that you come at your guests about like ratcheting it down. We also have security officers that'll actually go to a property when somebody's in violation and shut that down too. We take that seriously because obviously we don't want to get banned and you don't want to get banned. So Party Squasher and Minut both have the extra redundancies in place that I really like. Another reason why I don't like NoiseAware is it drills into a socket. Like you have to have a light socket. And so yeah, it's not removable and it's powered by the house, but now it's a very obvious device that's in the wall and somebody's like, what's up with this? And they can actually break it and break it off your socket, which I've seen happen. Minut goes on a magnetic plate and you can drill it anywhere. So it looks like a smoke alarm, like a smoke detector for the most part. And you can put it in the most like hard to notice areas, which is super, super cool. It's battery charged and you can just have your housekeeper take it down, plug it in while they're cleaning and put it back up. Now we've identified the second way that you can get banned. One is for over surveilling your guests and invading their privacy. And 2 is for not monitoring them enough and them throwing a party without you being in control and, you know, actively preventing that party from happening. Airbnb will hit you for either side of the coin. A third one that I see is pretty common is Airbnb will ban you as a host if you have a criminal history that they find to be unsavory. Now, I've had other people reach out to me because they employed a person and that person that they employed was operating within their company, actively through as a co-host, and then Airbnb, ran that person's information because they got added as a team member or they made an Airbnb account and got attached to the listings as a co-host, and then Airbnb banned those addresses, right? And so then anybody who tried to host at those addresses, they got banned too, right? So Airbnb can, as a safety measure to prevent, like say, fraudulent activity or illicit activity, they will tether the ban not just to the account, but to the address in question. Now, I had a close call with Airbnb where I almost got removed, where we picked up some property in Philadelphia. And these ones ended up not going well. The landlord was kind of a weirdo, but he got banned and did not disclose that to us. We picked up a run of Airbnb properties in Philadelphia right around COVID. And we did this because we were looking to pick up properties that people wanted out because of COVID. And we're like, this is gonna be fine, we'll write it out, we have the cash. Well, one of the addresses that we picked up was a series of townhomes from a property, and so they came furnished, and that was our whole plan. Pick up properties that are pre-furnished because they're just getting out of the game. And so one of these properties we picked up, the landlord didn't disclose that they got banned. So we took them, signed the leases, activated the lease agreement, and then when we got these listings, we tried to create listings for them, and they wouldn't show up. And thus, we almost got caught with a bunch of rentals to pay for that, we couldn't list. So then I contacted Airbnb and said, hey, we are a new tenant at this property. We operate as a business, as you can see, all of our properties all over the country, but we can't get these ones actively listed. And they're like, yeah, well, these ones are actually banned. I'm like, that's super wild. As you can see, we didn't do anything to cause the ban. What can we do to fix this? They're like, well, send us a copy of your lease agreement, showing that you guys are new renters, whatever your date was active. Well, apparently this one was like party houses all year and got banned for being party houses. And then we had to fix that by showing them our leases. Well, lo and behold, people knew that there were party houses in that area. So when ours got back on the market, we instantly had problems with parties. And that's why we first started hiring a security officer to party squash, because those ones, we constantly had to turn people away for trying to throw parties. It was super not fun, but we got through it. But that one became like a point of contention, and we were able to formally get through that process. And so the good news here for you is there are ways to work with Airbnb to actively prevent or reverse bans, whether they are on a property or on your account. You can appeal with Airbnb the ban, like if you get your account banned. And so I walked this guy who's in the EU through how to fix it. And so my advice to him was to do a video tour of the whole house. Be like, hey, here's where the camera was, past tense. And if you can see, it wasn't in line of sight of anywhere. You have to walk through this hallway this way and then this way to get into the living room. And so this is, you know, of course, my violation. I understand now that technically this is the same room. And apologize for not understanding Airbnb's terms of service, and really lean on the fact that he's been a host for a good long time. You know, say that I've removed the camera, we won't be using cameras ever again, just because, you know, obviously we don't want to accidentally violate Airbnb's terms of service. The only monitoring device that we will be using is the Minut system. And Minut just partnered with Airbnb on some level, and Airbnb's like promoting them. So they like Minut and they know about Minut, so that's a safe one. So hopefully this, like, hey, here's what we're doing now. Sorry about that, guys. Hopefully that fixes it and he can get back to hosting as per usual. Airbnb also bans users who operate without permission from their landlords. So a landlord can drop on you and say, hey, I'm not allowing Airbnb my property. This listing should not be online. Airbnb will deactivate those listings. And if they see that you are a pattern offender of like renting properties, putting them on Airbnb without permission from landlords, and you're getting a lot of landlords complaints, they will remove you from the platform. So just always, when you do rental arbitrage, have written documentation that you and your landlord have an agreement, because if that ever comes up ever and they check on you, you should be able to service like a lease addendum, which I have a video on how to get a lease addendum for your landlord, where it says that the landlord is giving you permission to run your business. Last tip for you guys, with this ban stuff considered, you don't want all of your eggs in one basket, and I know a ton of you have probably already put it in the comments right from the beginning of this video. You shouldn't only be using Airbnb. Now, I know my channel says AIRBNB Automated, but I started this channel when I had 10 properties, and my goal was to automate my business. And so I'm doing this YouTube channel because I said I would, right? I'm just doing this because I'm keeping a promise to teach you guys how I do this. And so I grew to 100 properties on Airbnb. That's kind of my social experiment. We are multi-platform now. So like we get bookings on VRBO, and we use Furnish Finder, and we use Copa and all this other stuff, and direct bookings and all the goodies. So you should plan to, as a scaled, experienced, you know, more than one property kind of host, you should be on other platforms. So do that just in case something does go wrong with Airbnb and you get banned temporarily and you're in the process of appealing it to get back on the platform. You still have distribution where your listing can get booked elsewhere. Because otherwise, if the only way that you could get bookings is Airbnb and they shut you down for a month, you have a month of no revenue, and that's dangerous, right? So don't just go only to Airbnb for your business. It's a great way to get started. You can get started only on Airbnb and then move to go multi-channel later. And I do recommend that actually, because when you're new, your rep's clean, right? And when you're small, you have one property, two properties, there's not really a lot of risk exposure because you're not doing a large volume of reservations. I mean, in the 7 years and 100+ properties that I've had, we must have tens of thousands of reservations that we've done, right? And we're still not banned from Airbnb. So if you take that at scale, the likelihood of you getting banned is very narrow. But once you're an established business, that is a risk that you still don't want to take. So go multi-channel when you're ready, and continue to grow and thrive. If you have any questions, if there's anything that I can teach you in this industry, of course, just let me know in the comments and I will answer them for you. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the other side.